So there's not a lot more variety. There's one seaweed that's I can't really talk about because it's totally finished, I've noticed here. And it's the nori family. And it's on that big boulder there that's high up. There's little streaks of kind of off black greenish seaweed there. There's a little bit that your foot is on. It is completely finished. It's a very early one. This seaweed here, it's a silky blade, and that's the sushi seaweed. Up where I am, it's still ripe. You can still harvest it because we have a lot colder water up there. But down here, I guess it's probably all people in the water. You wouldn't be doing that up where I'm harvesting it. It's too cold. But it will dry when it's ready, and it's in prime condition. It will dry black. It'll be like tar on the rocks. When the water hits it, it's like a dark purpley red, and it's actually of the red algae family. There's the three groups are your brown, your green, and your red. And all the seaweeds that grow around the world are in those three categories. If they're sea vegetables, there's corals and other things, and mushrooms actually under the sea. But they're a different thing entirely. This one, you don't need to make sushi paper out of it. You can harvest it. Again, it's the same thing as with bladderwrack or rockweed. You want to harvest it so that you're not damaging the holdfast, so it will continue to grow. You're just taking the leaf off of it. Now I've heard mixed things. The fisheries tells me to cut it with a pair of scissors, and the native people tell me to tear it. And my experience hasn't been long enough to know that cutting it with scissors does damage, but I've talked with some elder natives and they say that it does damage it. So it's actually better to tear it. So what you'll notice is some of the holdfast will come off, but when you're harvesting it here on a rock, you would just come in. It's hard because it's a bit dry now, but when the tide's first going out, you come down here and you hold the end and you just rip it like that. And it'll come off, it'll tear off, and the holdfast will usually stay right there. And for some reason, that's like the nature of that plant. It will rejuvenate faster and healthier by that method of harvest. So just something to keep in mind. You can try both and keep an eye on it. You'll notice these colorations on the rock are actually the crust phases of a lot of different seaweeds, and I don't know them all. If you do go out camping or kayaking or something and you get a situation where you can harvest some seaweed, the drying is quite simple to do, especially if you're in the summer and you've got some nice weather. You can dry in the sun. It's very difficult to dry right near the ocean though, because there's it's got salt in the water or something, or in the air. It will not completely dry right beside the ocean. So you actually want to, if you can find a clear cut or something, it doesn't have to be far off the water, but a little bit back, you'll have a lot more success in drying it. You'll know it's completely dry when it snaps. Nori is particularly easy because it's black and it absorbs the heat and will dry very quickly. This seaweed here is Mastocarpus. I'm kind of shading it. This ruffly one here, it's very young right now, and it will. I noticed actually back when I came down here by myself, there's some bigger leaves going the other way on the beach. It's a red algae and very high on the tide line as well, and it's quite tasty. And it's one that you can harvest in July, which is nice because a lot of the seaweeds are already done their cycle by then. So if you can pay attention to this one, it's very close to the rockweed. It likes it high on the tide line as well. Good eating, easy to dry because it's thin. Yeah, and another note too, like just for people, if you're in a clean situation, there is no seaweeds in BC that are poisonous. Okay, so it's safe to experiment and try things out. They're not all good. Some of them are quite nasty, and some of them are very peppery and they'll burn your tongue, but they're not going to hurt you. So, and a lot of them are very astringent. Like where I am, there's a lot of brown algae, which we don't have here because there's well, that's a dog, I guess. Oh, I saw a sea lion there.
Monster.
Yeah, the brown algae tend to like it a little bit deeper and colder. So the fucus is the only brown algae that's here right now. But some of the alarias and the wing, like the seersucker, and there's a whole bunch of big brown leaf algae. Some of them are quite astringent, but some of them are very good, and that they're very high in agar, which was used commercially. They used to harvest a lot of it and extract the agar for desserts and ice creams and things, and pharmaceuticals. Does anybody have any questions about the beach here yet that you can think of?
We get, sometimes you mentioned storms, we get a lot of kelp
Washing
in early fall.
Yeah.
It like, I think it's called bullwhip or
Bull kelp, yeah.
Bull kelp.
Yeah.
It comes up and then it looks reasonably fresh.
Yeah.
Like it's torn out by the motion of the sea, I guess.
The sea, yeah.
Is that
it's
useful or?
Well, there's a couple of things to watch for when it washes up. That it needs to be brown. Like if it's gone green, it's probably had too much time out of the water. Like a lot of the time it'll be up on the beach, the tide will go out, it'll be sitting there and it'll start raining. The first sign that it's going is when you look at the brown ribbon, which is the part that you want for food. If it starts to bubble, it'll create little bubbles on the ribbon. That's when it's been hit by fresh water, and for some reason fresh water wrecks the algae very quickly. So if it's rainy, which it often is in September or October when those are washing up, the best way to catch it is if you can come down in a storm and catch it as it's coming in from the ocean. That's usually when you can get the best.
So just use the ribbon part, not the...
The whole thing is edible, but the other part is...
nasty.
In Alaska they make pickles out of it, but my father has told me never to make them. So I haven't, but apparently some people like them. So
the big rubber part of it.
Yeah.
So what do you do with them? Like how do you use them for food? Like,
the kelp?
Yeah.
Kelp, I dry the ribbons, and I don't dry it on a screen because it seems to stick to everything. I usually hang it like clothes on a clothesline.
Yeah.
And give it lots of air, and I just dry the ribbon until it's crispy, and I don't cook it usually, but you can cook it. I just crush it on my food dry, like a salt in place of salt, and I use it on everything.
You just eat it like crackers.
If you like salty
All
snacks,
day
you can eat
long.
it straight out of the jar or whatever. Yeah, but I tend to like it on foods myself. It's quite salty. But if you eat dulse, it's not as salty as dulse. Dulse is very salty. We do get dulse on the coast. It's very rare here, though. It's much more common on the east coast. It's a red algae. Red algae are the most depth tolerant because they need the least amount of sunlight. So when the tide goes really, really low, those are some of the unusual ones that you'll find down there. But be warned, the red algae are the ones that have the peppery family members. It's not a good experience, so when you do try a bit of seaweed, just try a very tiny amount in case you have to spit it out, because it can really ruin your walk.